What's going on, guys? SeeJay here. Today's video, I wanted to take a peek at the sensor tower data. I did a video on this about a month ago, and I wanted to kind of compare it now that we've had the entire month of January come past us and sort of see what the numbers pulled in for usually one of the worst months of the year and how it compares sort of to its competitor of its own, right? Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. So let's go ahead and take a peek at the data here. All right, guys, so you can probably hear my voice. I'm pretty sick. I wasn't going to actually make a video today, but I really want to hold true to making a video every day. There's really not a lot to talk about. I have some other ideas in the pipeline, like I mentioned, with, you know, raid teams and new player guides and stuff like that, but today's not one of those days to make a video like that. I feel like crap. So, but what I did find interesting is, per usual, there's just a lot of banter going on in the Discord channels. I actually just saw Quantum posted a video, so if you haven't seen it, take a look at it. But pretty much just like a call out to them directly in hopes that if any of the members of SeeJay are watching his channel and they see his video, to please respond back to the community in some way to give us any information, because at this point in time it's been nothing. And although I've heard from other content creators this is status quo, pretty norm for them in this game, the only reason why it feels a lot worse than maybe how it has been in the past for Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, for example, is the fact that they left us with no journey ahead, went on vacation for the holidays, and then skipped an entire month and a half, really, but understandable to go through, you know, that holiday peak, right? That like 3-week-ish window. So your Christmas week, your week after Christmas, that's kind of heading into New Year's. And then even if you want to say the week after New Year's, right? Like maybe you're giving like a full-fledged like 3 weeks of kind of just downtime, working lot, whatever, right? Like totally understandable. I get it. But now we've got, besides getting one post on Instagram and Twitter that really just was kind of referencing, hey, like we're on vacation, but you know, we're kind of coming back essentially, like we're still sort of working, like we got headphones on and stuff. Doesn't feel that way because there's been zero communication at all in the Discord or anywhere for that matter. I know there's still a lot of bug issues that aren't being addressed. It's just like nothing is happening in the game. And we talked about this a bit yesterday when we talked about the EA earnings call and the fact that this game is still on their sort of agenda. So I don't foresee this game going away, at least not in 2024. I do think like when we finally get some news from this team, everyone's gonna just shift off this kind of bandwagon of complaining and, you know, crying outrage and sort of jump into like, oh man, like this is the new character coming, this is the new legendary, this is the new mode, whatever they might tell us, right? Doesn't feel that way because we've been sort of on this holding pattern now for over 40 days. But yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do, right? Like all we can do is just kind of sit back and just wait until they say something. But the thing that really is surprising is in game now you have no calendar, which is weird because a lot of free-to-play players probably look forward to some of those free resources every single day for logging into the game, and it gives you a reason realistically to at least log into the game once a day, right? Like if you log in once a day, you're guaranteed to get that daily resource, whatever it might be. And now right now there's not one, there's no calendar. We've had upwards of times where there's 2 or 3 calendars going on, right? Like if there's a special promo or whatever it might be. So the fact that there's none is just kind of wild. And then the shop too, like that's just really surprising as well. Those are the things that stand out to me as like, I understand they're away and they're busy and whatever the story might be behind the scenes, but it's really, really awkward that they're just like, the game has nothing, right? It has nothing. There's nothing to buy besides basic gems to use on basic resources in the game. There's nothing else. We're down to just Bilbo left as the marquee remaining character that you could consider purchasing with gems to, you know, to upgrade. Once Bilbo is gone, there's nothing left in that game to buy outside of just the generic resource gems. It's really like a weird state of the game. But anyways, what I wanted to do is I made a video on this about a month ago, and I compared, you know, as you guys can kind of see in the background here, I compared, it was December 10th to January 9th. So we're about 3.5 weeks since my last look at this. And I don't really want to make this like a monthly routine, but I figured it'd be worth looking at because we're at sort of this weird state of the game. And I'm kind of was curious, how did the game do in this sort of really busy window, like heading into holidays, thinking like sales probably ramp up just like it does for any other industry. And then generally January is a really rough month. So I wanted to see how it's looked for them. And then Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, again, it's not a great comparison because it's like significantly stronger player base and game out there. So like I get the numbers are not going to be near each other, but what I really wanted to look at when I am comparing the two games is mostly, is Star Wars seeing a similar downtrend in revenue or downloads because of January, or is it relatively kind of flatlined, like the expected drop off, but nothing like to the extreme, right? And so I wanted to see, like, you know, is there a big variance, or are both games kind of in line with sort of the drop off? So real quick, we won't make this, like I said, a really long one. You could see Lord of the Rings. So if we're looking at it right now on my screen, so when I made this video back in the beginning of January, we're looking at Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle Earth for Android, and you can see that the downloads was 10,000 downloads, and they generated $300,000 in revenue. So if we look at my other tab, which is looking at the same stats now for January through today, which is February 1st, they've done 10,000 downloads. We actually have maintained downloads. So that's, I guess, good to see that the downloads are flat, but I don't know how good we feel about 10,000 downloads over a course of a month. That's not that many. You know, if you break that down into, it's not much, right? Like, it really isn't. A couple hundred downloads a day, I guess, is what you're averaging. Like, that's pretty bad for a worldwide game. But what is really, really bad, and I guess I'm not totally surprised here because there's nothing to buy in the game for anybody, $80,000 has been generated compared to the $300,000 that they generated the month prior, roughly about the month prior. So they're down significantly month over month in their revenue. So that's not good to see. $80,000 for a mobile game with a strong IP backed by Capital Games and EA. That doesn't probably really sit too strong when they're asking how is the game doing, and it's generating like $2,000 a day, you know, in a month, like $2,500 a day on the Android store. And it's not much better on the Apple store. Apple store, you're at 7,000 downloads with $100,000 in revenue. So all month they generated roughly 17,000 downloads and $180,000. And for perspective, 10 and 300,000. And if we kind of just fast forward here to get to the Apple screen, 6,000 downloads and $300,000. So the dollars are down like 60 to 70% month over month. The revenue, the downloads are relatively flat, but again, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because even though the game is in the lull, if you're a new player coming in, you probably don't know all the back drama going on. You might have just like searched for a game on your phone, came across Lord of the Rings, downloaded it, maybe started playing it. You're not really maybe interested in being a big spender off the bat, so you're not really looking at the store and deciding what to buy, what not to buy. So a lot of that stuff isn't really a factor to you. It's going to be when you're like kind of a little bit more committed, you're a couple of weeks in, you're really enjoying the game, you're playing it daily, and you say to yourself, okay, like, I want to be more involved with this game. How do I do that? Who's the content creators to go search for on YouTube to get help on guides or information that I'm looking for? What's the Discord channels or the Reddit channels or whatever to like get the source of information a more dedicated player is probably going to go out and do. So, I mean, the downloads, sure, it's flat. I didn't expect it to be up, I guess. But, I mean, the downloads, again, are just terrible. Like, those numbers are really low. So, again, if we compare it to Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, it's not a fair comparison. I mean, it's absolutely insane, the differences here. But if we're looking at Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, they did 500,000 downloads for this same time period when I recorded this video almost a month ago, and 4 million in revenue. And if we look at Galaxy of Heroes today, they're at 300,000 downloads. So they are down in downloads versus the prior, you know, picture that we went over by like 30 to 40%. But their revenue is not terrible. It's at 3 million. And the last poll is at 4 million. So they're down like 25% in revenue compared to Lord of the Rings being down like 70%. So definitely a huge drop off in the revenue side of things, game versus game. Then if we look at it for Apple in comparison, it's at 100,000 downloads and 6 million from the last point of view to 100,000 downloads and $3 million. So downloads relatively flat, revenue down 50%. So both games did see a significant drop in revenue, and that's probably to be expected because that included your prime Christmas-y window of sales. So, you know, you had that. I don't know necessarily if people are like going out of the way to say, hey, I want specifically Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes currency of any sort as like a Christmas gift. but a lot of people might have got an Apple Play card or Google Play card and used that towards this game, right? Which would have dramatically increased revenue because they got it on Christmas, right? So I did expect revenue to drop. That's pretty understandable. So seeing it drop roughly 30-40% on Star Wars and more around 70% in Lord of the Rings, so definitely a bigger tail off there. But the download side, again, the downloads are pretty flat, so we didn't see a huge drop off in downloads from the game month over month. Like, people still came to play in December just like they did in January. And the same thing for Lord of the Rings. Like, neither game saw a drop off in downloads. Just the big thing is, like, there's just not that many players playing the game. And if you really are considering their total revenue for an entire month of $180,000, that can't really be that much money to support this team. I don't know how big the team is, but I can tell you that 180,000 in revenue is definitely not cutting it to support their salaries, to support the infrastructure of the game, etc. And they're probably pulling some resources from Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes to support the game, to kind of get it off the ground, with the hope and intent that the game kind of takes off in a similar fashion as Star Wars did. $180,000 is just, it's terrible. And I mean, you don't have any offers or any characters or anything to get excited about. Like, it's you know, it's honestly to be expected. Maybe some people thought they'd even be less revenue than $180,000, because I didn't. I mean, what are you going to spend your money on in this game unless you're buying a gem pack, right? So anyways, I thought I'd take another look at this. I know everyone's kind of like down and out and just hopeful that we get some kind of breaking news at any point in time, which still has yet to happen. And I was kind of curious, how is the game doing? Like, how did it perform for the whole month of January when it's usually a bad month? And it kind of did as I expected, which was terrible. So I'll see you in the next one.